back and happy Friday. So I actually been looking forward to doing this video given that I received this email, actually an update from a person that had messaged me back in 2021, and I created a whole series on cuckolding in the UK. Now that I reflect back, I'm wondering if the title of that series is actually relevant today concerning this particular individual. I actually had time to read his email. I'm just now coming to you guys to respond to this email. I think this video is going to be very enlightening, to say the least. I've had some time to reflect because some things that was shared in his email, it made me think, which obviously I love to do. I love to think deeply about human behavior, what motivates us, what becomes of human behavior, right? And I find his story very interesting. Granted, I received tons of messages from people who have come across my videos, many of which have gone viral on YouTube, and they end up in my Facebook inbox, my YouTube, they respond to my YouTube videos via my email that is publicized, is public, I don't hide my email address. I don't promote it necessarily, but it's there for those who would like to get in contact with me. And funny enough, as I am preparing for this video here, and I'm going through my inbox because this email was sent 5 days ago on February 5th, I see a new email, too, from the same person that I'm wondering if I should actually read, but it made me remember, it brought to my awareness why I'm so repulsed at those kinds of emails. Number one, the second email the person sent, I kind of glanced at it, is a dick pic. And the first is him sharing his story, his experience, but it's very hypersexual. And granted, you guys know I don't shy away from sex or talking about sex for that matter, right? But I would like to engage in meaningful conversations, and just talking about dick size in and of itself, right? It just doesn't do it for me. It's not stimulating enough for me, right? So this is the reason why I can really appreciate this email that I'm going to get into in a minute from this attorney that resides in the UK. He's from the UK, United Kingdom. And I can really appreciate it because I like the depth of transparency that he is willing to share with us. He doesn't have to, but I think it makes for a meaningful discussion so that we can reflect upon our own lives. I think that you guys are going to really appreciate this. So just to give you guys a little backdrop. So I initially received an email from this person back in 2021. I think it was September 2021. And of course, he was acknowledging that he appreciates my candid videos. He likes the discussion, particularly on cuckolding. And, he wanted to kind of engage my interest in his particular story, which I find quite interesting. I think it's very unique because he isn't afraid. I think he was cautious somewhat initially, obviously, with giving his title, his profession. He was somewhat cautious, in disclosing information, but I think he saw over time, once he saw that I was, able to handle his story with much care, delicacy, thoughtfulness and protection that he was willing to open up and share a little bit more. And it's like the more, he shared, and the more I dug deeper into the psychological underpinnings of his drive, his attraction to exploring the world of cuckold, and the more he felt inclined to share and to open up and to go deep. When I say deep, like looking at his childhood history, right? He shared with us how he was raised by his mother and his father, but he witnessed and also experienced physical abuse from his father, who he identifies as an alcoholic. He had problems with alcohol, and so did his mother, right? And so setting the context for this person who we're going to kind of take a psychoanalytic look into his sexuality, his sexual expressions, his sexual fantasies, his desires, but also making that connection to his childhood history growing up. He admitted, through this analysis that I did back in 2021, he did admit that he has an insecure attachment. I mean, it's pretty clear. I can tell that just from our exchange. I haven't spoken to this person, at all, right? So I don't know what his voice sounds like. I don't know the tone of his voice, the pitch, the cadence. I haven't heard that. And I imagine, obviously, that would provide much more detail and information, if we were to have that verbal exchange by phone or video, which he did request, but I politely decline and respectfully decline, because I don't really want to take it there. I just don't. I don't mind you responding to emails like I've done here, and I'm going to do here in this video. But as far as making myself available for video interactions or consultations, I'm not there yet. Not to say that I'm not open to it, but I'm just not there yet. So maybe sometime in the future we'll get there. But yeah, like I imagine the depth of our understanding of this person would allow for a much more deeper understanding, that depth and what we know about this person would be much, much broader, much, much stronger, if we did engage in that type of discourse. But here we have. So, he's an attorney in the UK. He identifies himself also as a champagne socialist. He doesn't want to toot his own horn, but he prides himself in his status, his social status, his profession, and it makes sense that he will become an attorney, right? It's specifically a defense attorney. He will like to remain anonymous, which I keep everyone who sends me these emails, they remain anonymous, because I really have no interest in disclosing a person's, identity, and I also have to protect myself, meanwhile, even though, of course, they give me permission to provide a very honest response to their email, their inquiries, right? So when he emailed me back in 2021, he was 39 years old, no children. We are in 2023. So this was back in September. So I would imagine, of course, by now he has gained a year. So he's at least 40 now. You guys are watching this video in 2023, of February 2023. But he still doesn't have any children, and the relationship dynamic between him and his partner. Now, I mentioned wife, but I don't think he's legally married. And that he admitted that that's also an issue for him and his relationship, because when he met his partner of over 10 years now, you know, she's motivated to do the traditional thing, right? To get married, to have children. And he wasn't really pressed for that. He wasn't rushing. He was hesitant, to his credit, because I have a lot to share. So you guys can just sit back and get comfortable. Like, we're going to really go deep here. But, you know, he wasn't rushing necessarily into that, though he says that she wanted that, right? She was seeking that sense of closeness and security, and he mentioned that she's insecure. She didn't have the love, you know, that she expected of her mother and her father growing up, and neither did he, right? So when you think of that, when you look at that situation, that dynamic, one can make the argument that they are codependent, that they trauma bonded, because she comes from this not so favorable situation growing up, and so did he. You know, they meet in the UK. I did have a question, though, relating to her origin. Now, I know you said she's Chinese from Hong Kong, but was she born there? Like, was her family born there? Did they migrate? Did they relocate? Did they move to the UK? Right? He just revealed, and we're going to get to his email. I'm going to read his email in its entirety in a moment, but he did mention in this email, which is kind of new information, that she works for him. So that creates a whole nother level. Granted, it's not that the power dynamic wasn't already evident, because he made that clear with her being Chinese, you know, raised in the traditional Chinese household. Within that culture, you know, the women are more conservative, weak, so to speak, submissive, subservient to the man. The man takes a more dominant role in their intimate relationships or romantic relationships, right? So he identifies himself as a dominant male. He has a dominant role in his profession. He's an attorney, a defense attorney. So that kind of lays out, you know, the foundation of their dynamic of their relationship. But for him to even, and we're going to get into it, right? I know I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I just want to lay this foundation. Like, for him to mention that she works for him, he employs her. It's a whole nother layer right there, right? Now, he knows his truth. And I pointed out some things that he's said, right? Like, I've highlighted some things, and he's definitely confirmed that, yes, your analysis is correct. He knows his truth, right? So the things that I'm sharing, I don't feel that they should be taken by surprise. I'm going to share some things, right? Because I just have to be honest. It's like, he knows and she knows. Like, this relationship has been a very tumultuous one, right? Very, I would say, volatile. And there are some things that he has shared deliberately, being honest and straightforward. And there are a lot of things that he hasn't shared everything. But it's clear, though, that it's there in his relationship with this woman. Right? Now, I get it. You have to save face, right? Because some things could border on the lines of being illegal, right? Being culturally, and socially inappropriate, morally inappropriate, right? I'm not here to judge. I am no judge. I'm not here to put anyone behind bars, right? But yeah, like, I think that it's one thing, and I have to be clear, on my intentions and the place in which I'm coming from and making this video, is that, I am all about liberation. I identify myself as sex positive. My channel is sex positive. So, This is not the space if you are that type of person who wants to get on here and judge the next person, right? Because, obviously I'm going to share some things in this video that may not be considered socially acceptable to most people watching this video. It just isn't. But I think it is worth us taking a different look, a different perspective. We're going to do that. Before I read this email, I have to say that my heart goes out to her. My heart goes out to the both of them. But I feel like if I had to choose, right, who I have more compassion for in reading this story and learning a little bit more about this woman and this man, my heart really goes out to her. Right? He talks about how, obviously she's Chinese, and within the culture, women are more conservative. She doesn't really express herself as much. Right? Let's get into it. All right. So he says, "Hey, Danielle, this email was sent February 5th. And I want you guys watching, feel free to chime in as you're watching live. If you're watching this, the replay on YouTube, feel free to drop your comments below." He says, "Long time no speak." Yes, it has been a while, a very long while. He says, "I am the attorney, solicitor, as they call it, in the UK from England, who previously messaged you last year. It wasn't last year. Technically, it was in 2021, right? But a little over a year ago. And you kindly provided some brilliant insight via your videos. By the way, I'm not expecting any video response to this email, but felt compelled to email you for the following reason." He knows I'm going to respond because this is just what I do. This is what I do in my leisure, right? This is a hobby. Be making videos, especially in this context. This just tickles my fancy, right? And this is what I love to do. He says, "The universe works in mysterious ways. I was thinking about messaging you," and I did reference him in my previous video. You guys can go check that out. He says, "I was thinking about messaging you because I have had numerous developments in my relationship." Of course you have. Yeah. I was going to say, I wouldn't necessarily call them developments. It's like, these are things that are bound to happen, right? And there's going to be much more. Like, I could speak some things that I see are going to happen in this relationship. It's just inevitable, yo. And it's not good things. That's what I see. It's not good things, right? This guy is a defense attorney. He defends criminal cases. I'm calculated, I'm cautious, I'm careful with my words here. I have to be, as I'm always, right? But I also like to balance that with me being transparent, me being real and honest. The irony of life is that sometimes the very thing that we feel is our purpose, right? To serve others, to give back, to protect people, whatever that role is that we do for other people, oftentimes we will find ourselves in that same position of needing a person to do that for us, right? So I can see this playing out in that way, where the same role, the purpose that he serves for other people, he's going to need that for himself, right? Like, I get that he comes from a family where there was abuse, physical abuse, enacted by his father. Now, granted, he didn't go into the details, the intricacies of that, the nuances of it, right? But you can imagine, right? And this is in the line of work that I do. Like, there are some things that are just consistent, that characteristic of certain factors, right? So given that he had this childhood where his father was abusive towards his mother himself, and his father was an alcoholic, like, he wasn't getting the proper attention. He wasn't getting consistent affection, attention that every child needs growing up, right? Which therefore created this insecure attachment. It's very evident. So he like, I call the woman in this story his wife, although I don't think they are legally married, but they've been together. They've been living together like over 10 years. So I might as well say that's his wife, right? Or codependent significant other. But given the nature of his upbringing, it's very clear of how this relationship works between him and this woman. It's very clear how they are so enmeshed and attached. I'm jumping ahead, right? So let's keep going. Coincidentally, I saw on Facebook yesterday a notification on my phone of one of your videos going live. I think that's by no surprise or coincidence, because that's just how these algorithms work, right? If we've already established connection, and YouTube knows, Facebook knows that you watch my videos, so of course they're going to show you more of what you subscribe to. What you're watching, what you're tuning into. They're going to show you more of that. I watched your video and I saw that you made reference to me, and it made me smile and affirm my instinct to email you with a little update. I am also flattered that you still remember me, as I know that you are so inundated from lots of different people. Of course I remember you. Like, your story definitely stands out. Like I said, I receive a lot of emails, just like I gave the example at the beginning of this video, where people, men especially, are hyper focused on sex, right? And though, yes, I like to talk about alternative lifestyles. So my video got interrupted apparently by supposedly poor Wi-Fi connection, which I'm not on Wi-Fi or internet connection. So let's continue. But yeah, I do receive a lot of those kinds of emails, which, aren't that exciting to me. So yes, of course, I am delighted to get an email from an individual who not only obviously presents with this alternative sexual interest, but also it has the wit, the level of intellect to be able to engage in a conversation that is meaningful and insightful. So since I messaged you last year, or 2021, quite a lot has happened. I was in a relationship with my Asian girlfriend, as you know, and I run a small law firm, and she works for me. Now, he's just now divulging that she works for him, which complicated business and pleasure, or more precisely, our business life and our private life, of course. Now, there are people that do that. There are couples that do that. There are poly relationships where the women's role is simply to serve the man, economically, and in other ways too, domestically, but especially like economically, helping to fuel the financial, status of this man, essentially, or of the family dynamic, but the money is going to the man, the head of the household. If it works, it works, but one can also see how that can obviously be complicated and come with its challenges and disadvantages, because from the woman's perspective who is involved in that dynamic, it does create this awkward, completely imbalanced power dynamic, right? There's an exchange of power where if you are her employer, not only are you her male partner, right, but you also are in the role of being her employer, where she works for you. Her survival depends on you paying her, right? You direct and tell her what to do. professionally. One can only imagine you do the same thing, in your personal relationship. There is no separation, essentially, right? You're saying that it's complicated things in the business and the private aspects of your life. Yes, because the lines are very blurred. So in the sense where if there is problems in your romantic relationship with her, those problems are going to inevitably affect that business relationship. That's why people say we got to keep business and personal. Like, no, you don't cross those lines, right? Because when things go wrong in that relationship, that personal romantic relationship is going to impact business negatively. That's just what's going to happen. And vice versa. Now, my question, what was coming, that I have for you is that, okay, she works for you. You say you employ her, but are you paying her the equivalent to what you would pay someone else who you didn't know working in that position? Are you paying her the going rate of being an assistant at your law firm or secretary, whatever role that she has? Are you paying her that going rate? Okay, let's continue. What I hadn't previously fully disclosed is that whilst I had mentioned fertility issues previously, the truth is that about 18 months ago, myself and my girlfriend discovered that I was infertile. That's a big ass bomb. Boom. Dropped, okay? Just dropped the whole bomb. Owing to a genetic defect, and we had 12 months of trying everything to try and correct the problem, including me undertaking an operation under full general anesthesia at a private hospital. So this man cannot have children due to a genetic defect. And the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, is this Klinefelter syndrome, where a man is born with 2 X chromosomes and 1 Y chromosome? Men are typically X and Y. Women are XX. But if he has X, X, and Y, that is one genetic defect that a man can be born with that affects fertility. And looking at the Klinefelter syndrome, with that, those men usually have smaller penises. So it kind of factors into this whole picture here that he's painted about his desire. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is why you guys have to go back and watch the other videos, the whole series that I made, Cuckolding in the UK. Go back and watch that on YouTube. I knew it was something I forgot to mention in laying the foundation, right, this groundwork before going into this email, was that he had initially expressed this desire to convince his wife, to kind of usher her into his fantasy of him becoming a cuckold, wherein he allows a black bull, to penetrate his wife sexually for his pleasure. Now, granted, he already mentioned she's conservative. And he also disclosed prior, back in 2021, that he really has no interest in penetrating his wife. That she's more kind of sexually reclusive. She's more, she obviously has a sexual identity, but, for her, it's not that salient. For her, it's apparently she doesn't have sexual needs. And if she does, how would he know? Because she's not verbally expressing those needs and advocating for herself and getting those needs met. She's kind of going along with the go along, right? Now, he's 40 years old at least. I don't think he ever disclosed her age, but I'm wondering, how old is she? And what is the age difference? Clearly there is a power differential in this dynamic, right? Where he is her employer at his law firm that he owns, apparently, or he runs a small law firm. He didn't say he owned it, but he runs it. Maybe he owns it. Who knows? He'll clarify in the follow-up email. But it's like, how old is she? It just makes you wonder. And like I already mentioned that, my heart goes out to her. Like, I have compassion for her because I can see where this situation is easily reading abuse. I'm just saying, whether he wants to admit it or not. And this is where it can get very delicate. This is why I'm taking my time with this video. Because I get it, I understand. No one wants to be accused, so to speak, of being abusive. But it's just something to consider. The signs all point to that, right? Now, we're going to get into your fantasy. We're definitely going to get into, his fantasy, his true sexual identity, his true sexual preference. We're going to get into that. But yeah, I feel for her because I just feel that she's being taken advantage of, and she doesn't seem to have a voice. She doesn't seem to have an identity of her own. Like, she is very much enmeshed in his identity, in his world, and what he wants. Working for him, moving in with him, agreeing to participate in sexual activities that gratify his sexual needs linked to other stuff, right, that he hasn't quite resolved. Really baggage, essentially. That's what it is, right? She's catering to his needs, which obviously that can very much, fulfill her inherent needs. A person can have an inherent need to feel like they need to cater to someone else's needs. They gain satisfaction from that. Submissives, that's what we do, right? Being told what to do. That could very much well be her thing. But then there's still a line that has to be drawn, though. Like, at what expense, at what cost are you catering to his needs? And I guarantee you, he damn sure ain't let her see this video. I know she has not seen this video, right? Because I'm definitely going to speak to that part of her that is much more deserving than her experience for what she's going through. In an earlier email that he sent back in 2021, he admitted he's not treating her fairly. He admitted that she's insecure. Her needs are not being met in this relationship. She is unhappy. He has told her to leave. He has threatened to leave. And just think about the level of toxicity in this relationship. But yet they still remain together. She desires marriage. They are not married. She desires children to come through her womb, which he is unable to fulfill. He desires, initially he said, for her to be pleasured by other men. He desires for himself to be penetrated, to be pegged, which he did admit to trying that with her, and she wasn't too thrilled by it. saying that she didn't say no necessarily. Of course, she's not going to say no because she wants to please you. Okay? Much of who she is, and even consistent with the Chinese culture, is really about pleasing the greater good of those involved, of the family, of your partner, right? Set aside your own unhappiness. Forget about that. It's about making other people happy outside of yourself from that collectivistic type of culture in that sense, right? So of course she's not going to say, you know what, I don't want to do this. Hell to the no. But to make you happy, she did. Let's keep reading. I mean, I feel so bad for her. I know, like I said, he definitely ain't gonna let her see this. Because if I could speak to her, I would speak life. I will speak life into her. Clearly it's not there. Which is why I like this dynamic. What we see here is not going to end well, right? A woman can take a lot. Women, we can take a hell of a lot. But when we have reached that threshold where we can no longer take it, which she has come close to, but she's come right back in, running back to that relationship, being pulled right back in because it's familiar. And even yourself, you said that you stay because it's what's familiar, what's comfortable. I mean, if her survival depends on it, it makes sense why it's difficult for her to leave, even though clearly this is not what's happening. It's not satisfying her needs. This relationship in its entirety, everything about there's nothing about this relationship that gives her a reason to stay other than she needs money to survive, right? She can get that somewhere else. She doesn't have to get it from you. Like I already gave a disclaimer at the beginning that I'm going to say some things that might rub you a little the wrong way. But it's just truth, and we have already established a degree of trust, I hope, according to your words in previous emails, and even in this email at the beginning, that you could receive what I'm saying. Just being completely honest. But it's not going to end well. Right? You and her, y'all both have received so many signs. Like, you've wanted to pull out. She's wanted to pull out. Both of you, y'all know this shit is not what's popping. You know that you're not, this is bad. Everything is bad all the way around. Get out, okay? No. It's a bad dynamic when y'all met. Okay, people meet for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? Like, y'all season is up. When y'all met, it was cool. You learned your lessons. You bonded. You did what you did, but it worked for what it was for when it didn't work. But that season, this relationship has run its course. It's so evident. Like, what more else do you need to see to make that final decision? Only you can. Only, she can, right? This is your life to live. But from the outside looking in, and just from the information that has been shared, right? It's a no-brainer. This relationship is very toxic. It's very unhealthy. And I get it. You have your needs, man. But to string her along to get those needs met is very unfair. It's unfair to both of you, actually. It's unfair to her Because how is she being satisfied? Given that she wants children and you cannot provide that for her, right? But you're going to string her along to get what you want and to go through the back door, which I mentioned in my video entitled The Real Reason Why White Men Become Cuckolds. It's the back door approach to getting their needs met. For them to be penetrated anally by the black bull. It's not about her needs and satisfying her set. It's all about this man. And listen, do you, boo boo. I'm all about that. Like, live unapologetically in your truth. I want to be clear with that. But it's a disservice. It's unfair. It's disingenuous. It's disrespectful. It's dishonest. That's just what it is. It's no judgment, but that's just what it is. Calling things as what they are. You're living a lie. You have to be severely emotionally disturbed. That's the truth. You know you are. She is too. But because the relationship is familiar, you stay. You're afraid to leave because of the, unknown. Starting over, so to speak. Especially considering your age. I mean, who wants to start over at 40, right? In a whole new relationship. But it's like you are codependent. You fear abandonment. You don't want to leave, right? You're going to experience much separation anxiety, parting ways from this woman. She probably will experience some relief. Let's continue. I'm disturbed. I'm just disturbed, okay, from this whole situation here. What I hadn't previously fully disclosed is that whilst I had mentioned fertility issues previously, the truth is that about 18 months ago, myself and my girlfriend disclosed that I was infertile owing to a genetic disorder, and we had 12 months of trying everything to try and correct the problem, including me undertaking an operation under full general anesthesia at a private hospital. This has been a very stressful period, of course. I mean, coming to the realization that you can't naturally reproduce, which brings me to another question as to, okay, you have 2 X chromosomes and 1 Y, but don't you still have sperm? I mean, you mentioned in previous emails that your penis is fully functional, which means that, you can get erect, you could get aroused, you could reach a full orgasm through ejaculation, right? Like, nothing is wrong with your sexual response cycle. Now, I would imagine when you ejaculate, there's sperm that comes out. Are you saying that something is wrong with the sperm? Are you saying that something is wrong with the projectile of the sperm when you ejaculate, so that it is not able to fertilize the egg? I mean, with modern technology, I would imagine there's ways around this deficit that you have, this genetic disorder that you have, so that while you won't be able to do it naturally, you could inseminate her egg in other ways, I would imagine, if that's what you want. But it seems like you're at the phase of your life that you don't really want a family in the traditional sense, a husband, a wife, and children. It seems like you have other things that you're trying to resolve, linked to your childhood, linked to the inattention that you received as a child. The lack of this consistent paternal figure. Even though he was physically present, he wasn't there. I mean, when a person drinks, I've dated an alcoholic, so I know, okay? That was my last relationship from 2014 through 2017. And I learned a freaking lot. Alcoholics, they're not there. They're not there, yo. They are so detached emotionally from relationships that it's just like, physically, like, why are you here? Like, you're useless, essentially. It would have been better for you to not even have a father than to have one that's physically present but emotionally absent, essentially. And kind of the same with your mother. Unfortunately, that's just your reality, and not only your reality, but the reality of many people. So you're craving that now, still, as an adult. And that's that's the sad thing, right, about voids. That these voids that we carry with us as adults, they will never be able to be fulfilled or filled, right? Because they were supposed to be met in childhood, right? The things that were supposed to be met, these milestones, developmental milestones that were supposed to be met in childhood, we're supposed to receive this affection that makes for secure attachment. You didn't get that in childhood, but your rest of your life, you're spending trying to get that, craving that. You're never going to get it because it was supposed to be met in childhood. And you mentioned that when you met your partner, that you liked that, she was all lovey-dove and buying you gifts, right? And she was acknowledging you, valuing you, your presence. She appreciated, gave you things that you would have loved to receive from your parents. At least the way she made you feel, right? Not tangible things, but these intangibles that you would have or should have received from your biological parents, but you didn't get that. It's okay. I'm sure there are times where they were there. They met certain needs. It's not that they were completely gone and not there emotionally. I'm sure that there were times, usually it is like that. But for the most part, I mean, something was missing, clearly. It is what it is, right? Your childhood happened. Can't go back and undo anything about it. It is what it is. But it's important to acknowledge that, to have that awareness so that you can heal and move forward. And then while you are healing the way that you are calculated in how you choose to heal, right? So that this is the reason why I said in my other videos that do what you do sexually. It's up to you, because you are going to live with the consequences of your behaviors, of your decisions, whatever decision that is, right? But it's important to know why you are drawn to certain proclivities, right? As I've done with myself, some deep soul searching to see, I understand why I'm drawn to being a submissive, to being a masochist, and loving to get beaten. I know that, right? And I take responsibility for what comes with that. So you're not blaming someone else. And you are acting and making responsible decisions as an adult. This is where it comes in, right? Because as I said a while ago, is that if you're not careful, this is not going to end well. It's like, you ever heard the saying, you better stop while you're ahead? Like, it's already too far gone, right? It's already bad. Like, what are you trying to achieve? You trying to make it a disaster? I mean, is that what the outcome that you want? Because that's essentially where you're headed. You mentioned that you like excitement. Again, I'm jumping ahead. I get it. All right, let's go back to the email. But essentially, that's what you're seeking, right? Excitement. That's what most of us are, who are drawn to non-vanilla relationships. Because it ain't nothing vanilla about us. There's nothing normal, per se, about us. We're very unique. We're very dynamic. But you still have to be careful. As much as I love excitement, as much as I am attracted to men who are dominant and alpha and controlling and have this kind of eerie feeling about them, and you know, as much as I like that, like, I still have to be careful. If I care about my life, if I truly love myself, right? You have to be careful. This has been a very stressful period. She wanted her own child, and she began pushing heavily for a sperm donor, which I could just never accept. Now, of course, you and her are two different people, but this is where it gets tricky and complicated, because it's just like, damn, that's fucking unfair. And I get it. Like, y'all have this power exchange going on. Right? It works because she comes from this kind of culture where women are subservient. Women are very agreeable to what their husbands want, right? Or male partner, whatever have you. But it's just like, she was willing to bend for you and put on a strap on and fuck you in the ass. I mean, you wasn't thoroughly satisfied because she wasn't really into it like that. That's not her thing. But she did it for you. This is what you shared in your previous emails in 2021. She did that for you. What is your reservation? What is your reservation about allowing her to use a sperm donor? You say you could never accept that. Let's continue. She threatened to leave me many times if I didn't agree, and ultimately, a few weeks before Christmas 2022 that just passed, she left and moved out of our home after finding out that her younger brother and his girlfriend were expecting their first child. So that is what triggered her to look into the mirror, into her own life, and be like, what the fuck am I doing? You know, because I mean, it goes without saying that women, we are born with a certain number of eggs. All the eggs that we're going to ever release, we're born with that. And we can only get pregnant once a month or every 28 days. Right? There's a window within that 28 days, very critical period of fertility, of us ovulating, that we could get pregnant. And even on top of that, there still is this other window called the biological clock ticking, our age, right? Again, you haven't mentioned her age. At least I don't recall. But age is definitely a factor. So it makes sense why this would be a very stressful moment, because that's what she wants. Come on, it's only natural for her to want that. What the hell is she doing with you? I mean, God, what the hell do you provide her that she's still there? I'm just saying, though. Your girl, I would would have been out, okay? Now, this is how I wouldn't have came back, because I went back to my ex several times. But at some point, I came to my senses, y'all. I'm like, what the hell? And I'm not even going to begin to go into the things that I endured in that relationship. It was definitely abusive. Without a shadow of a doubt, it was definitely psychologically, emotionally, sexually, physically abusive. Okay, I went through complete hell. I'm not even about to. That's a whole separate video. But I came to my senses like, what the hell? She's come to her senses, but she went back. Why is she going back? I'm not saying, okay, you are the bad person. It's not about pointing fingers, all right? That's not what we're doing here. But the relationship dynamic is toxic, y'all. Y'all both need to get it together, okay? And heal, because coming together, what y'all both bring into that relationship just creates for disaster. And it's only going to get worse, okay? But here you have your fantasies. All right, you're writing your story. What kind of novel are you writing with your life? A horror story? A suspense novel? All right. In response, I told her that I supported her decision to leave and wanted her to find a new partner and ultimately have a family. You told her that, okay. But she can't leave, right? She just can't get away from you. Some people love abuse, though. After months of her threats to leave, I actually felt relief when she did. I bet you did. It's like, hell, if you're going to keep saying you're going to leave, leave. What the hell? Because I'm sure her telling you that she was going to leave triggered your fear of abandonment, which you already admitted to. I'm sure. When you said that your father was physically abusive to you and your mom, I can't help but imagine, even though you haven't admitted here, but I can't help but you did admit that you have anger problems. You have anger problems. You know what comes with anger problems, right? Aggression. They go hand in hand. You have a short fuse. You already said that. I know you're not going to admit to putting your hands on her, right? Some people, they are embarrassed to admit that, right? People who are aggressors in relationships are typically embarrassed. You know, they don't want that guilt on their shoulders. They don't want to come to that realization that they are, in fact, abusive and they're just perpetuating cycles, things that have been done to them, things that they have learned. Now they're doing it to other people. They don't want to admit that. It can be scary to admit that. But I can't help but go there here in this video. Everything that you said is very much characteristic of you being likely to abuse her physically. To put your hands on, and of course men who are typically the aggressors, right? It could be a woman. But people who are the aggressor, they minimize it. They're like, okay, well, I didn't really hit her. I didn't hit her, right? But I did grab her. I did shake her. I did put her against the wall, right, to assert my power. Because words sometimes just aren't enough, right? So I put her against the wall to assert my power. I grabbed her by her neck. I grabbed her hair. I didn't hit her, though. I tapped her face. Or I picked up another object And the object hit her, but I didn't hit her. Come up with all of these scenarios to explain the abuse, because it's so difficult to say, yes, I hit her. I put my hands on her. It's the hardest thing to admit, especially for a person who don't want to change. After months of her threats to leave, I actually felt relief when she did. At least I did, after I had processed things after an initial 24 hours of shock and subsequently period of readjustment. Yeah, 24 hours of shock. You're shocked that she left, finally. She finally showed herself some compassion and care and love. Within a week, she literally came crying back and wanting to move back in, saying that she had made a bad decision in leaving. I was reluctant and resisted this and tried to reason with her and reminding her that she left for good reason. And that she should seek a new relationship and look to have a child, which she had wanted so badly for the past 18 months. I reassured her that she still had a job with me. Yo, I can't help it right now, yo. Okay. That she still had a job with me and that nothing would change in that regard, and that I would also support her emotionally. You really expect me to believe that? These are things that you say you told her. A person can say one thing. That doesn't mean that they really mean that, right? Clearly you didn't mean it because you didn't stand firm on what you said. Right? You reneged on your words that you spoke to her. If in fact these words I just read that you said to her are true, then they will remain true. And that will be the situation. You did not stand firm. You know what the fuck was best for her and yourself. Right? So in being that dominant man, and like you say, oftentimes you have to make very difficult decisions in your line of work, why did not you take the authority in this situation to make that decision? Though she says, oh, I want to come back, you're coming back in tears. Come on, listen, I'm going to read this again because this is very pertinent. I was reluctant and resisted this and tried to reason with her and reminding her that she left for good reason. For your own good reason. For your and her good reason. For your own betterment. For your own health. And that she should seek a new relationship and look to really not really seek a new relationship. Eventually that's going to happen, right? But she needs to seek a relationship with herself. She's been with you for the past over 10 years. She needs to seek a relationship with herself, love herself, right? Because that's just going to carry over into the same person that she is and was to you in your relationship. She's going to be that same person and attract you, another you, for herself, and be that same person that it's going to be the same bullshit. It's going to repeat the same. She needs to change. When you leave a toxic relationship, you got to work on self. And there are aspects of self that need to change so that you don't repeat that same pattern of behavior. If you're going to repeat the same pattern and attract the same person and be the same person in the next relationship, why leave? There's no point in leaving. And I get it. Change is fucking hard. It's hard to discipline yourself because it takes discipline to change. Y'all clearly both lack that. You lack it. You don't have the discipline to do what's best for both of you. And that she should seek a new relationship and look to have a child, which she had wanted so badly. She still wants that. You know, she had wanted. She wants badly. Okay? What changed? You say it as if it's past tense that she wanted so badly. So what changed? Did you convince her that, oh no, because that's not what you want, or clearly what you're able to produce, right? And then with her seeking to do it the non-traditional route, the medical route, you don't want to participate in that either, going through a sperm donor. So now she doesn't want it. Now it's past tense. She wanted it so badly. No, she still wants that. It's like, this is where the manipulation comes in. And this is the part that really doesn't sit well with me, right? It's kind of unfair, right? Because she's not a willing participant in this situation. All right. For the past 18 months, I reassure her that she wanted so badly for the past, so beyond the past 18 months, now and moving forward, she doesn't want that anymore to satisfy you. I reassure her that she still had a job with me. I bet you will throw that in there. Yeah, I still got this job. Because you need the job. I still got your job. So now she has to make a choice. Do I want to lose my fucking job and go live happily ever after and achieve my desires of creating a family and having a child? Or do I still want to keep my freaking job and live in misery with this motherfucker who, come to find out, he ain't really a cuckold. He's really bisexual or really gay. Like I said, no judgment, but it's about truthfulness and living in that truth. Okay? Being real. And taking into the context of what you shared about your genetic disorder that you had no control over, that your parents had no control over, apparently, or possibly, but that was kind of like an era, right? And or maybe not an era, but it's just how your genes developed. A natural era, let's say it that way, or a natural deviation from the norm. So it makes sense why sexually you would be attracted to men if that's the case where you have Klinefelter or maybe a similar genetic disorder. It makes you infertile, but it could also affect the expression of your genes related to your sexual identity. I do believe, in fact, that could be true. I don't cast judgment on people who identify themselves as gay or transsexual or transgender or bisexual. That's not my place, right? Because I understand that as human beings, we are very dynamic creatures, right? It's not black or white. There's a whole spectrum. A rainbow, clearly, that's the symbol, But that's how it is, though. Like, we are so diverse by no fault of our own or choosing of our own. That's just how we are made. We're very unique. So it makes sense that who we are, how we identify, our identity is very diverse. Our sexual expression, therefore, will be very diverse because it has a genetic root in the makeup of who we are. The truth is coming out here in your story. It's coming out. It hasn't come out completely. I mean, it's like over time, you're slowly like itching the truth out on her. I feel bad for her because it's just like in the face, right? Constantly. And this reality that is her in the face over time, like, it's so different from what she envisioned going into this relationship. And of course, so that is life, right? This is life, that it just doesn't go as planned. We may have expectations about life and what our life is going to look like, what's going to happen, who we marry, the type of person that we marry, the type of career path that we eventually embark on. Even college students change their major multiple times. They go into school thinking they're going to major in one thing and end up changing it 2 or 3 times, right? Life is unpredictable. I get that. And I do find it odd that this person is 40. I guess not that there is a age limit on sexual exploration, but I'm like, I did a lot of exploring when I was younger. When I was a teen, I did a lot of exploring to the point where after I completed that phase of sexual exploration, I knew that I'm heterosexual. Like, this is, like, what you see here is what you get. This is who I am. It is not going to change, right? But I just find it interesting that in your later years, you're in midlife and you're kind of like, you're just now exploring this. And I get it because there are different societal norms and impositions that, things are imposed upon us. And you mentioned that on one hand, you would identify as bisexual, but you don't want to claim that. You don't want to claim bisexuality because of the stigma attached to it, the negative connotations attached to it, the judgment, people's preconceived notions about it. Like, you don't want no parts of that. I get that. So it makes sense why it's difficult what you're going through, this coming out process or coming into process of who you really are, is so difficult considering the society that you're in, right? You're like, this is your reality. This is who you are coming to be. And eventually you'll step into it. But it's just like, then, you have these mores are in your ear about what's right, what's wrong, what you've been taught. That voice is constantly playing in your mind. And that's what you're struggling with, that internal struggle. Thinking about the implications coming out as a gay man, proud gay man, will have, on your family, your relationships with your family, your professional life as a attorney in the UK. Not saying it's easy. It's not easy being you, right? Only you can be you. I reassure her that she still had a job with me and that nothing would change in that regard. Whew, that financial dependence. The lines have been blurred, right, between the business life and the private life. She's in a very tough spot, leaving your job, leaving your boss, like it's all in one. For her to leave, it's not about her leaving you. It's about her leaving her sense of safety and financial security and starting over. Like, that's tough. In the face of family, I'm sure her family is aware, right? They know about you and her. You say they don't live that far away from y'all. Like, what does her family think of this? I'm sure her family matters, given her cultural identity and the context of her upbringing. And that I will also support her emotionally. All right, we're coming down to the wire. Almost done. A few more paragraphs here. So she has more recently told me that being away from me has made her realize how important I am to her. You made her say that makes you feel validated. And that's another thing about a person, a child, in an adult's body, right? There's an inner child that lives within you that craves this validation, craves, a sense of safety and security constantly, right? And because that's just who you are, shaped by your experiences that you really had no choice over growing up, it comes out, in your relationships subconsciously. You're not sometimes even aware of how it manifests, because that's just so much inbred in who you are that you've perfected this ability to manipulate, to get those needs met, right? That's what we do. We've perfected it so well because that's all you knew. That's all you know, right? I would imagine that you got her to satiate that need to feel love and validated. That's what I'm saying. Your relationship is so fucking toxic, yo. She know it, you know it. She know what the hell you need. Like you said, that mother. She came on and when y'all first met, and that motherly love. Now listen, that's your thing, but please have a degree of awareness, right? Like, I hope that she knows this and you know this. And if y'all both know that, okay, you're in a toxic relationship and this is what you want to live, then you're responsible. You're responsible for the consequences of it. But she knows, she's playing into it, so it's not all to not pointing the finger all at you and like, okay, you're the culprit, you're bad. Like, no, she knows what she's doing. She knows those insecurities that you have. She knows that. It doesn't take a genius to know that. And I also was curious about her level of education. I mean, granted, you say you're an attorney. Like, she works for you, but, what is her level of education? What is her age? Like, but it doesn't take a genius to know, to be able to see into another person and to see their insecurities and to know how to kind of to fondle those insecurities. So she's playing with you just as much as you're playing and manipulating her. That's why y'all made for each other. We have had some honest talks, and one of them has been about my desire for cuckold. Stop saying cuckold. You don't want to cuckold is where you as a male partner are allowing her to be satisfied by a bull of your choosing, right? That ain't what it is. you know that ultimately that's not what you're going after. That's not it. You want to be fucked. You want to be dominated by a man, particularly a black man. You want that. Because you aren't able to, because you say that you aren't willing or you have no interest in penetrating her, I think it's more so you're not able to satisfy her sexually. Like physically, you don't have that capability, I would imagine, given that, you know, you obviously admitted to your genetic mishaps here with infertility. We have started hanging out more, and she's basically moved back in. We have found a guy in his 20s, a prospective bull, and we are chatting with him on WhatsApp group chat. Her sex drive is currently very high. Now that's a little contradiction. I'm noticing a little contradiction. What happened to her sex drive? Because you said at first, like, she's conservative, she doesn't really express herself sexually, but doesn't mean that she don't have needs, I guess, right? But her sex drive is high, which I'll imagine, I mean, obviously as a woman, I can relate. You know, our sex drive, it can fluctuate, right? Depending on the time of month. When we're ovulating, that should be high. I noticed that for myself. Like, damn, I'm horny. And I find myself going to the sex store buying vibrators. Like, damn. Right? And there'll be other times in the month where, not to say I don't desire sex, but it's not, like, physiologically, it's not a craving necessarily as it is when I'm ovulating. I know I'm more lubricated down there. Like, my body chemistry changes, you know, based on the time of month it is. But anyway, her sex drive is currently very high, and we are making arrangements for this guy to come and visit. It looks like we are going to give this a go. I know you get a lot of fantasy talk, but I can verify all of this with screenshots of the WhatsApp message. I don't think I really want to see the WhatsApp messages. I think reading messages are kind of boring. I know that's your receipts, though. My one takeaway from all this is that I would say I had anxiety developed from childhood experiences of my dad being violent towards my mom and me. This is where he discloses that he was a recipient of the abuse as well, perpetrated by his dad. And that I had developed an inner angst for control, with one example being that I bought my house in my own name and not jointly with my girlfriend. I mean, not that you had to, because she's just your girlfriend, right? Y'all weren't married. But I get your drift. You know, which you're coming out. You're coming into who you are, admitting, and you have the insight to be able to see into yourself, into your past, and what makes you who you are today. That's a big strength, big positive. Some people just don't have that level of insight. Which I know fed her insecurity within the relationship. Exactly. Because she's like, damn, this motherfucker, does he love me? Does he care about me? Does he really love me? Or is he using me? She's still insecure, I'm sure. And you feed on those insecurities. Like a puppet. You're playing, toying around with her insecurities. Stringing her ass along like a puppet. And she's just allowing that. That's the problem I have. But anyway, she often described me as a lone wolf, triggered in part by the fact that I previously told her that I didn't want to get married. You don't want to get married to her. Okay? Stop stringing her along. Stop doing that. But she's allowing it. Like to your point, you said you told her, get the fuck on, live your life. In fact, live your best life. You gave her that permission, as if she needs your permission. or your approval, but you gave that to her. And yet still, she's just clinging on for dear life, not letting go of you. Is that love? That's not a rhetorical question. I want you to answer that. Is that love? You don't want to get married to her. When she left the relationship just before Christmas, I felt the need to let go, and it has been liberating. I am really working on letting things go in my personal life and accepting things for what they are and what they are meant to be. I am also trying to consciously show gratitude for anything and everything. Anyway, I like that you always like end on a positive note. You have a way, of kind of like wrapping things up in a really nice bow. You're clearly, it goes without saying, you're very smart, okay? You're very astute. That's probably why she can't let go. Because that shit is very attractive and very sexy. She's attracted to your mind and the skill that you have to manipulate. That shit can be sexy, comes at its own detriment too. But that shit is fucking fine. I like, for me, I'm not attracted to a man who I'm smarter than. I like men who can outsmart me. And that would mean being able to, obviously, to manipulate me. Everyone manipulates. Right? So it's just that, oh, well, you like people manipulate. We all manipulate. That's just human nature. Right? We know how to say things and put our words together to get what we want, to get our needs met, to effect change in our environment, in our lives, right? That's what manipulating is. I like a man who can out-manipulate me. It takes that. Otherwise, I get bored. I lose interest. I'm not even attracted to a man that is beneath me in that way. It makes it more exciting. You gotta be smarter than me. So, I am really working on letting things go in my personal life and accepting things for what they are and what they are meant to be. I am also trying to consciously show gratitude for anything and everything. Anyway, I hope you are well and enjoying your clinical work. Please keep up the excellent video work. I love your videos. I'm a big fan. And I love your insightfulness. I love your honesty. And I love your engagement. And he signs off with his name and says, I wish to remain anonymous publicly in terms of my name. Of course, of course, of course. So that wraps this video. I want you guys to leave your comments below, share this video. And I know you're going to reply. I welcome your email reply. And I'll come back with my video reply. Catch you guys later.